Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the clock to a time before tablets, before SpongeBob, before 24/7 streaming queues quietly raising your kids while you sit on the couch questioning your life choices. No, tonight we're heading somewhere far stranger, far wilder and far more dangerous. We're going back to the 1950s, a decade where children, actual, unsupervised, shoelace-untied children, were somehow allowed to roam the earth like a migrating herd of feral suburban deer. Long before TV stepped in as the universal babysitter, kids filled their days with unstructured chaos, homemade danger, carcinogenic crafts, and games that definitely didn't involve helmets, sunscreen, or adult supervision of any kind. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And thank you for suggesting this topic. It means the world. Feel free to drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm guessing at least half of you are horizontal right now at 2:17 a.m, wondering why you're listening to a history comedy sleep story instead of dealing with your laundry. Now dim those lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise, get comfortable, tuck your feet under the covers in case any roaming 1950s raccoons try to nibble your toes. Let's get curious for a second. Have you ever wondered what kids actually did before TV took over? How did an entire generation entertain themselves without iPads, Roblox, or streaming services delivering dopamine straight into their eyeballs? Did they really spend hours poking dead fish with sticks? Did they wander 5 miles from home just because they felt like exploring? Why were so many toys sharp? Why was every playground basically an OSHA violation with a swing attached? And honestly, how did any child make it to adulthood without at least 3 concussions and a tetanus shot? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1953. Your mother has thrown you outside to get fresh air, which is code for don't come back until dinner or someone is bleeding. You have a peanut butter sandwich, a stick, 0 supervision, and a full day ahead of you. Good luck. Your day starts with the screen door slamming behind you as your mother orders you to go play. Not where, not with whom, and certainly not safely. Just go. The outdoors is both your playground and your responsibility, and the adult expectation is simple: survive until lunch. It's barely 8 a.m, but the sun is already warming the pavement, the birds are screaming their morning arguments, and somewhere down the street, a lawnmower growls awake like a cranky old dragon. You take a deep breath of fresh 1950s air, crisp, clean, faintly tinged with gasoline and someone burning leaves illegally, and prepare yourself for another day of unsupervised freedom disguised as character development. Behind the door, you can hear your mother sigh with the relief of someone who has secured at least 2 hours of silence. Outside, you are now officially the neighbourhood's problem. The first thing you notice is the sheer volume of possibilities. To a 1950s child, the world is not a list of dangers, but a buffet of opportunities to make questionable decisions. The sidewalk is warm under your bare feet, because shoes are a suggestion, not a requirement. A stick lies in the yard like a magical staff waiting for a worthy hero. A puddle, despite the fact that it hasn't rained in 3 days, beckons with mysterious depth. Every object is charged with potential. You could spend hours doing absolutely nothing, and it would still feel like an adventure. As you step off the porch, the morning sun glints off the chrome of parked cars, each one radiating a soft hum of automotive pride. Every dad in America is currently polishing his precious four-door sedan, while every kid in America is currently wondering which part of it can be climbed without being yelled at. You wander down the driveway, listening to the crunch of gravel beneath your feet, a sound so iconic that if you bottled it, it would smell like lead-based paint and parental indifference. You look around for signs of other kids. They materialize like cryptids, appearing suddenly from behind bushes, from garages, from beneath porches, as if activated by the sun. No texts, no calls, no group chat, just pure instinct. The Neighborhood Child Network is a telepathic organism that knows exactly when someone is outside and ready to cause trouble. Within minutes, you're surrounded by friends holding sticks, baseball gloves, a jump rope with frayed edges, and one kid who already has a scraped elbow despite being awake for less than an hour. Someone suggests climbing a tree, someone else suggests building a fort. Another kid wants to run down the hill and see who can stop the slowest, which is 1950s child code for we are absolutely going to crash and bleed. Every idea feels important, urgent, world-changing. There are no schedules, no alarms, no soccer practices, just the raw, feral freedom of children left to their own devices and limited common sense. You wander toward the end of the street, where the pavement gives way to gravel, and the gravel gives way to adventure. The sun warms your shoulders. Your hair smells faintly of sleep and outdoors. Your socks, if you bothered with them, already contain half the neighborhood's sand. There is a moment, small but perfect, where you realize that you could go anywhere. The world feels huge, endless, navigable entirely by bicycle, imagination, and the occasional slice of bologna. And the best part? No one is watching. No one is tracking your location. No one is telling you to be careful, a phrase largely unused in this decade. Your mother's only rule is simple. Don't come back inside unless you're bleeding, hungry, or both. Preferably both. A child returning too soon means boredom, which means noise, which is the natural enemy of peaceful homemaking. So you take one step further, then another. You cross the invisible boundary between porch and possibility. Your day has officially begun, shaped entirely by impulse, geography, and the unspoken 1950s expectation that children should behave like free-range chickens. And as the sun rises higher and your bare feet slap against the road, one thing becomes clear. You are outside now, and the whole world is waiting for your questionable decisions. Within minutes, you've merged into a roving pack of neighborhood kids on bikes with no gears, no helmets, and brakes that only work when you pray. The streets are your kingdom, and every driveway is a potential racetrack. Your bike, of course, is a heavy metal relic from the Eisenhower administration. A machine so solid it could probably survive a lunar landing. It has one speed, which is go, and another speed, which is hold on and hope. Modern bicycles whisper along. Yours rattles like a shopping cart filled with gravel, every loose bolt chiming like a mechanical percussion section. But somehow, when you're on it, you feel unstoppable. It's the closest thing your childhood has to a personal vehicle, and you treat it with all the reckless confidence of someone who has never contemplated their medical deductible. Around you, kids appear on bikes of every shape, size, and questionable functioning state. There's the kid with streamers on the handlebars that whip dramatically in the wind, even though half of them are missing. There's the kid whose chain pops off every 30 seconds, requiring a pit stop that involves turning the bike upside down and poking at it until it works again by sheer force of will. And then there's that one kid whose bike is technically too big for him, forcing him to ride standing up at all times like a tiny determined jockey. As a group, you pedal down the street in a loose chaotic formation, every child spaced at random intervals that ensure maximum danger. You weave between potholes, hop curbs, race shadows, and occasionally swerve violently to avoid a renegade squirrel. No one is wearing shoes intended for athletics. Sandals, flip-flops, and mysterious half-broken footwear are the norm. A few kids don't even bother with shoes at all because the calluses on their feet are thicker than medieval armour. The smell of cut grass fills the air as you glide past lawns so precisely manicured they could double as golf greens. The sun glints off chrome fenders and bottle cap decorations taped to spokes. When the light hits them just right, it looks like a disco ball travelling at a dangerous speed. Someone suggests doing the loop, an unofficial route that circles through back alleys, past the creepy house everyone swears is haunted, and down the hill so steep it should legally require warning signs. You agree because children in the 1950s do not possess fear, only vibes. The pack turns with dramatic flair, the way movie biker gangs do, except you're all under 12 and at least one of you still has jelly on your face from breakfast. The hill awaits, a long stretch of pavement sloping toward oblivion. Standing at the top, you feel a thrill that adults would call poor judgment. You kick off, gathering speed instantly. Wind whips against your face, your eyes water, and your legs no longer have any meaningful control over the situation. Your bike rattles like it's attempting to shake you off, but you're flying, fast, free, and screaming with joy. Behind you, the pack follows, shrieking in terror and delight like a chorus of caffeinated banshees. At the bottom of the hill, you attempt to slow down using a combination of dragging your feet, leaning into physics, and offering up a small prayer. The brakes squeal in protest. You fishtail slightly, regain balance through a miracle, and skid to a dramatic dust-clouded stop. Kids behind you do not stop as gracefully. One crashes into a bush. Another wipes out in someone's hydrangeas. Everyone's laughing, because gravity may have tried to murder you, but it didn't succeed, and that's what counts. Your pack reforms, battle-scarred but energized. Now comes the sacred ritual of showing off bike tricks, which consist mostly of lifting one hand off the handlebars for half a second, standing on the pedals for a dramatic 3 inches, or riding no-handed for a full, terrifying heartbeat, before panicking and grabbing the grips again with both hands like a repentant sinner. The rules of the bike pack are simple. Keep up, don't cry, and if someone crashes spectacularly, check they're alive before laughing. Adults wave from porches, unconcerned, because they assume natural selection will sort out the overly enthusiastic. Cars slow down, not because of safety, but because they fear the local kid swarm more than any traffic law. By mid-morning, sweat drips down your face, your legs burn, and your hair is plastered to your forehead in a stylish child feral chic look. But you don't stop. The world is wide, the neighbourhood endless, and your pack unstoppable. For now, the streets belong to you. A tangled, sunburned, fearless parade of chaos on wheels. You inhaled a bowl of cereal so sweet it could legally be classified as frosting, paired with milk that tasted mostly fine. With this nutritional chaos in your bloodstream, you're ready to sprint into traffic. Breakfast in the 1950s isn't a meal, it's an event sponsored entirely by sugar manufacturers. Your cereal box features a cartoon mascot with a manic grin, promising energy for hours, which is code for we put candy in a bowl and called it nutrition. The flakes are neon, suspiciously crunchy, and somehow both stale and sharp enough to injure the roof of your mouth. They dissolve into a vibrant sugar-saturated milk that now glows with the faint aura of dental regret. Your mother pours the milk without smelling it, because in this decade, expiration dates are suggestions, not rules. The milk hits the bowl with a faint glorp, and when it splashes up, a tiny whiff tells you it's at that special stage between still drinkable and about to become cheese. But you don't complain. Complaining leads to oatmeal, and oatmeal leads to sadness. You shovel in massive spoonfuls with a kind of instinctual desperation. You're a child powering up for an entire day outdoors, and your body needs fast fuel. By spoon 3, you're vibrating at a frequency only bees understand. By spoon 5, your vision sharpens, your pulse quickens, and you begin to contemplate outrunning the sun itself. And then you get to the prize at the bottom of the box, a tiny plastic toy submerged among the sugary shards like treasure at the bottom of a cereal ocean. Every 1950s child has risked their life attempting to shake the entire box upside down to retrieve one of these treasures before siblings could claim it. Today's prize is a small figurine shaped like a cowboy, missing one eye and most of its paint, but it may as well be a royal heirloom. You cradle it in your sticky hand, triumphant. The radio crackles in the background with cheerful morning optimism, telling you the weather will be mild, which is meteorologist code for we have no idea. Your father flips through the newspaper, absorbing headlines about topics far beyond your childhood comprehension: politics, economics, a sale on lawn fertilizer. Your mother moves around the kitchen like a weary general preparing troops for battle. She glances at you occasionally, mostly to confirm you haven't spontaneously combusted from sugar intake. The kitchen itself smells of toast, bacon grease lingering from last Sunday, and that faint sweet dairy tang of maybe good milk. Sunlight filters through the thin curtains, illuminating crumbs that were not here yesterday and will still not be clean tomorrow. Everything feels warm, familiar, simple. Breakfast isn't fancy, but it's reliable in the way only mid-century routines can be. Halfway through the meal, your younger sibling wanders in wearing mismatched pajamas and hair that defies gravity. They reach for your cereal. You hiss like a feral raccoon because the sugar prize has activated your primal hoarding instinct. A negotiation occurs, sometimes verbal, sometimes physical, but ultimately your sibling settles for toast that is 70% butter. Then comes the final ritual, drinking the leftover cereal milk. This shimmering liquid, radioactive in colour and unsettlingly warm now, is the nectar of the 1950s child. You tip the bowl back, gulping it down with the confidence of someone who has never heard the phrase blood sugar spike. It coats your tongue in sweetness, your teeth in plaque, and your soul in joy. As you set the empty bowl down, you feel it. A rush so intense your entire body buzzes. Your muscles twitch, your brain lights up. Your feet begin tapping out rhythms your mind cannot yet process. You glance toward the door because instinct tells you the outside world is calling. Your mother barely finishes saying, "Don't run," before you blast past her like a tiny over-caffeinated tornado. The screen door slams, dust rises, birds scatter, neighbours brace themselves. You are fueled by the breakfast of champions, sugar, questionable dairy, and pure childhood invincibility. And now you're ready to meet the day head-on at full sprint with absolutely no regard for safety, physics, or common sense. Before climate change, kids climbed trees. Every branch was a challenge, every twig a risk, and every fall a walk-it-off moment. You're 6 feet above the ground, pretending to be a squirrel, and no one has checked on you in an hour. The tree in question isn't special, just an average suburban maple that didn't ask for this level of recreational abuse. But to you, it's Everest. It's Narnia. It's your stage for reenacting every dramatic moment from the cowboy show you watched last week. You plant a foot on the lowest branch, gripping the trunk with the confidence of someone who does not yet understand gravity. The bark is rough beneath your fingers, shedding flakes that will become splinters later, long after you've forgotten how you got them. Climbing begins with the sort of blind optimism only children possess. You hoist yourself up using a series of questionable footholds, most of which were never meant to support the weight of a human body. The tree creaks ominously, nature's way of saying, "Are you sure about this?" But you ignore it, because you're busy reenacting your secret squirrel identity. You scramble upward, swinging from limb to limb, your bare knees scraping against branches polished smooth by generations of reckless children before you. Halfway up, you pause and look down. 6 feet might not sound impressive to an adult, but to you it feels like standing atop a skyscraper. You are invincible, a king, a woodland creature of pure athleticism. The wind brushes your face and rustles the leaves around you like applause. Somewhere below, a dog barks at absolutely nothing, and you interpret it as cheering. Of course, climbing trees in the 1950s comes with certain unwritten rules, chiefly that you must ignore pain, ignore fear, and never admit you're stuck. Getting stuck is embarrassing. Getting rescued is humiliating. So as you shimmy onto a branch that bends like a flexible straw under your weight, you tell yourself everything is fine. Totally fine. Absolutely not going to break and drop you into an afternoon of forced ice packs and parental disappointment. You inch out farther. The branch wobbles. A twig snaps off, spirals downward, and lands with the softness of a warning from the universe. But you persist because childhood is 40% imagination, 40% questionable choices, and 20% yelling, "Watch this." Below you, the ground seems to tilt, shifting from soft grass to jagged cliffs in your mind. but the excitement outweighs the risk. You lean against the trunk, feeling the sun warm your skin. The smells of sap, dirt, and last week's lawn clippings swirl around you like the world's original essential oil blend, Eau de Feral Child. Your hands are sticky, your knees are scraped, your hair is filled with leaves. It's perfect. Then you attempt a daring maneuver, switching from one branch to another like a circus performer whose safety net is optimism. You swing sideways, hooking a foot around a smaller branch that immediately rebels by bending dramatically. For a moment, you are weightless, suspended between adventure and catastrophe. You slip. Gravity lunges for you with wild enthusiasm. You fall 3 feet, land on a lower branch and smack your shin with the force of 1,000 playground disappointments. Pain blooms instantly. You grit your teeth, refusing to cry because crying is for children who stay indoors. Instead, you slap the branch like it offended you, mutter something you probably shouldn't, and continue climbing. Your shin throbs, but your pride untouched. Eventually you reach the highest branch you're willing to trust, which is really the highest branch that isn't actively dying. From here you can see the neighbourhood, bikes abandoned on sidewalks, screen doors slamming, distant shouts of dinner in an hour. You feel like a scout overlooking your kingdom, surveying potential ambushes and snack opportunities. When you finally descend, it is not graceful. It is not controlled. It is a series of semi-falls and awkward slides that deposit you onto the ground in a dusty heap. You stand, brush off the dirt and pretend you meant to do that. As you limp slightly toward your next adventure, one thing becomes clear. You have just risked mild injury, serious injury, and spiritual injury, all before lunchtime. But hey, that's 1950s childhood athleticism. Your future orthopedic bills will be breathtaking. With zero supervision and infinite curiosity, you create potions in old jars you found behind the garage. Most of these mixtures smell like guilt. Some are bubbling. All are concerning. The backyard becomes your laboratory, an open-air research facility with no ethical guidelines, no safety equipment, and absolutely no adult oversight. A patch of dirt becomes your workstation. A cracked patio stone becomes your mixing bench. The old peanut butter jar you rescued from the trash is now a beaker of cutting-edge scientific work, if cutting edge means on the brink of spontaneous combustion. You start with the basics. A scoop of mud so dark and sticky it could be used to mortar a medieval castle. You drop it into the jar with a satisfying schlorp, then immediately add a handful of grass clippings, because every good potion needs green stuff. Scientific fact. You stir with a stick that is definitely not clean, watching the mixture thicken into a texture best described as swamp oatmeal. Next comes the quest for ingredients. You scour the yard with the intensity of a collector hunting rare artifacts. Pebbles? Yes. Pine needles? Perfect. The weird orange crust growing on the side of the garage? Absolutely. You don't know what it is, and that's the point. Real scientists push boundaries, or in your case, poke them with a stick. Soon the jar contains a combination of solids, liquids, and what might be semi-sentient matter. The smell rises in waves, damp earth, childhood ambition, and something vaguely metallic that makes you reconsider your life choices for half a second. But you keep mixing because you're close to discovering something important, something powerful, something that will absolutely stain your hands for the next 3 days. You add water from the garden hose, letting the stream blast into the jar with chaotic force. The water pressure fluctuates wildly, sometimes a gentle trickle, sometimes a fire hose-level jet that knocks the jar over entirely. You laugh, because chaos is part of the scientific process. Probably. The mixture begins to foam. Not dramatically, but enough to make you wonder if you've accidentally invented a new species of slime. Your friends gather around, drawn by the unmistakable smell of questionable science. They begin offering suggestions like experienced lab assistants. Add a worm. Put in a bug. Try sand. Sand always does something. The problem is sand never does anything, but you add it anyway because peer pressure is a cornerstone of childhood experimentation. Someone hands you a marble, you drop that in too. Why? Because it looks cool. That is the only criterion. While stirring, a mosquito lands in the jar, sealing its fate and adding protein to your concoction. You announce this loudly, as if this transforms your backyard potion into a survival elixir worthy of a camping manual. Your friends nod solemnly. You're all scientists now, dangerous ones. Then comes the testing phase. Then comes you poke it with a stick. You swirl it. You shake the jar violently until some of the mixture sloshes out onto your shirt. It doesn't matter. The shirt has seen worse. Someone dares you to smell it up close. You do. For a brief moment you regret everything, as the scent hits like wet mulch mixed with broken dreams. Your eyes water. You step back, nodding as if this was a necessary data point. At some point you decide your potion is complete. What does it do? No one knows. Could it summon frogs, cure imaginary illnesses, melt through a wooden plank? Possibly. Probably not. But that's irrelevant. The real thrill is in the creation. This reckless, glorious alchemy powered by imagination, yard debris, and the total absence of adult supervision. When you're finished, you leave the jar somewhere important, like in the sun, where it will definitely ferment into something the CDC would strongly advise against. You walk away proud, your hands stained brown, your shirt damp, your hair smelling faintly of hose water and despair. You don't know it yet, but your mother will find this jar in 2 days and she will not be pleased. But that's a future problem. For now, you are a backyard chemist, a master of mud and mystery, and your potion, your bubbling, suspicious creation, is your masterpiece. You and your friends drag planks, cinder blocks, cardboard, and someone's missing door into a magical architectural creation. A fort one sneeze away from collapsing. It is perfect. The moment the idea of let's build a fort enters the group consciousness, it takes on the seriousness of a military operation. Meetings are held. Leadership is assigned based on who found the coolest stick. Plans are drawn in the dirt using a rock that is now officially a drafting tool. Every kid immediately splits into roles. The scavengers, the builders, the decorators, and the child whose only job is to yell, "Incoming," whenever an adult walks by. The backyard becomes a construction zone governed entirely by childhood logic. Every object not actively nailed to the house, or guarded by an adult, is now legally classified as building material. You haul planks that are far too heavy for you, dragging them behind you like an ant moving an entire tree. A cardboard box becomes a wall. A trash can lid becomes a shield window. A broken lawn chair becomes, well, it's unclear, but you shove it into the structure anyway because it feels right. Cinder blocks become prized treasures. They are sturdy, reliable, and just heavy enough to prove your strength when lifted improperly. You and your friends hoist them into place, grunting like tiny construction workers who have never heard of back injuries. The blocks are stacked, unstacked, restacked, and then rearranged into a pattern that defies engineering, reason, and local building codes. Next comes the door, someone's missing door, to be precise. No one knows whose door it originally was. It simply appeared one day, leaning suspiciously behind the garage, and has now been repurposed as the grand entrance to your kingdom. The hinges don't work. The paint is peeling. It weighs as much as a small cow, but when you prop it up between two branches, it transforms the fort from trash pile into luxury real estate. Inside the fort, the air smells like grass, dust, and the sweaty determination of children who have no idea what OSHA is. Sunlight filters through gaps in the cardboard walls, casting dramatic beams like you're in a sacred temple of questionable structural integrity. The roof is a patchwork quilt of wood scraps, tar paper, and one old bedsheet your friend found in their basement and definitely did not ask permission to use. As you work, you decorate the interior with treasures, a rusted hubcap, a stack of comic books, a chipped ceramic frog. These objects elevate the space from fort to headquarters. A small tin can is ceremoniously declared the official cup of the group. A brick is labelled chair. A stick is now the sceptre of leadership. Everything has a purpose, even if that purpose is mostly symbolic and deeply confusing. Occasionally the fort attempts to collapse. A plank shifts. A wall buckles. The cardboard sags ominously in the heat. But every time a child rushes over, grunting with premature adulthood, reinforcing the weak section with another block or a piece of rope that once belonged to someone's jump set. The fort becomes a living creature, stubborn, precarious, and somehow still standing through the sheer force of collective childhood willpower. When the fort is finally declared complete, you all crawl inside, sitting shoulder to shoulder in the cramped, dimly lit interior. You whisper because forts, by their very nature, demand secrecy. Plans are made. Murmurs of upcoming missions fill the air, missions that involve spying on neighbours, retrieving snacks, and occasionally defending the fort from imaginary invaders. From the outside, adults glance over and see a pile of random junk stacked haphazardly in the yard. But inside, you and your friends inhabit a world of epic storylines, classified secrets, and architectural brilliance. The fort may creak with every breeze and shudder when a bird lands on it, but that only adds to its charm. Fragility is part of the magic. Eventually, someone leans too hard on a wall, the entire structure tilts. A child screams. Dust explodes in the air, and the fort collapses like a dramatic actor fainting on stage. You all stand up, coughing, covered in dirt, blinking in the sunlight. Then, without hesitation, someone says, "Let's build another one." And just like that, the construction cycle begins again, because in the 1950s the world is full of forts waiting to be built, collapsing under their own ambition, and rising again from the rubble of childhood imagination. Rusted nails, cool rock, mysterious metal chunk. Into your pockets they go. Your mother will discover these artifacts during laundry and mutter a prayer for your guardian angel. For a 1950s child, pockets are more than sewn fabric. They are sacred vaults of discovery, museum drawers of questionable treasures, curated with the enthusiasm of a tiny archaeologist who has absolutely no field training. The yard, the street, the alley, the construction site you absolutely shouldn't be in, every place becomes an excavation site. The world is littered with objects that adults classify as trash and children classify as destiny. Your first find of the day is a nail, bent into a shape that can only be described as ominously sharp. You admire it, turning it over between your fingers like an aspiring blacksmith examining raw iron. It has that beautiful reddish-brown patina of rust that suggests it has lived a life full of danger and tetanus. Perfect. Into the pocket it goes. Next you spot a rock, smooth on one side, jagged on the other, with a streak of quartz that glints in the sunlight like it's calling to you personally. You tap it against a bigger rock, listening for the satisfying clack sound that means it's officially worth keeping. Your pockets now contain both a potential weapon and a geological treasure. Balance is important. As you wander farther, you find a mysterious metal object half buried in dirt. It could be part of a car. It could be part of a plane. It could be part of your neighbour's lawnmower, which will mysteriously stop working this afternoon. You pluck it from the earth with a reverence normally reserved for ancient relics. It is heavy. It is cold. It smells faintly of oil and danger. You have no idea what it is, but you know that it is important. Into the pocket. Objects accumulate quickly, bottle caps, dead batteries. Screws so tiny they defy understanding. A shard of blue glass that shines like a mermaid scale, but could also slice your finger open at any moment. You pick it up anyway because you enjoy living on the edge. Pocket. You pause to take inventory, pulling each item out one by one and arranging them like you're hosting a travelling roadshow of hazards. Another kid walks over, admires your collection with the solemn nod of a fellow treasure hunter, and shows you the feather he found earlier. It's from a pigeon. You pretend to be impressed. The two of you set off together, combing the neighbourhood for more artefacts. You peek under bushes, you overturn rocks, you wander into a garage left open by accident, spotting a shiny washer on the floor. Jackpot! Pocketed before anyone can ask questions. At one point you find a length of string, frayed, and probably older than you. You hold it up triumphantly. String is worth its weight in gold. String can tie things together. String can swing from branches. String can be a trap for unsuspecting siblings. The possibilities are endless and mildly concerning. By midday, your pockets have begun to sag noticeably. They bulge with a combination of metal, minerals, and things that should legally be disposed of. Walking now produces a rhythmic jingling, like you're the world's smallest, most dangerous bell choir. Finally, you spot it. The ultimate treasure. A small tin box flattened by a car and glittering on the side of the road. You snatch it up, turning it over between your hands. It rattles. The mystery deepens. You shake it again. Still rattles. The contents could be coins, sand, bugs, or something too special for mortal understanding. You tuck it into your pocket like the crown jewel of your growing chaos collection. Hours later, when you return home, your mother will empty your pockets and discover this assortment of metallic threats, sharp edges, and biohazards. She will sigh heavily, then lift her eyes toward the heavens in a silent plea for your guardian angel to work overtime. But for now, you march triumphantly through the neighbourhood, pockets clanking, heart full, ready to add yet another object of uncertain safety to your ever-expanding collection. Because in the 1950s, you don't just gather treasures, you curate danger. In the 1950s, a child could legally vanish for 8 hours and the only consequence was a parent yelling, "Dinner's ready." You walk miles, cross creeks, trespass on farms and return sunburned and glowing with triumph. There is no plan when you set out, just the vague intention to go somewhere. Somewhere could mean 2 streets over or the next county. Geography is more of a suggestion than a limitation. Every road you haven't taken is calling your name. Every forested patch behind the school is a portal to adventure. Every distant hill is daring you to come see what's on the other side. You shrug, squint into the morning sun, and choose a direction at random, because the world is large and you're wearing shoes that can best be described as optional. Your friend joins you, materializing from his house like a non-playable character, programmed to exist just outside his front door. He carries a stick because children of the 1950s travel armed. Together you begin walking, the gravel crunching beneath your feet, the air warm with the scent of fresh-cut grass, gasoline, and whatever Mrs. Henderson is cooking for lunch 3 hours too early. Soon the familiar houses thin out. The sidewalks end. The asphalt narrows to a sleepy country road lined with ditches full of swampy mystery water. You balance along the edge like a tightrope walker, arms spread wide. One misstep, and you'll fall into a puddle that's been there since the Truman administration. This danger excites you. This is living. You pass a sign that says no trespassing. Naturally, you take this as a personal invitation. Beyond the fence lies a field stretching so wide it might as well be the Great Plains, golden and waving in the breeze like an enormous wheat ocean. You slip between the fence slats with the ease of a professional escape artist, emerging into a world where responsibility cannot reach you. The field hums with grasshoppers, your socks fill with stickers, you feel unstoppable. Halfway across the field you find a creek, cold, shallow and murky. The creek exists solely for children to take risks. You hop from rock to rock like an underpaid circus performer, your friend following behind while narrating the imaginary documentary of your journey. The water splashes your ankles, the mud sucks at your shoes. You slip once only to catch yourself with a spectacular flail that looks like interpretive dance performed by someone being attacked by bees. Beyond the creek, the world shifts again. Woods now, tall trees shading the ground. the scent of damp earth thick in the air. Birds chirp overhead, and somewhere in the distance a dog barks with the energy of someone yelling, "Get off my property!" You freeze for a moment, then decide that if anyone asks, you're absolutely supposed to be here. You press onward, branches brushing your arms, sunlight flickering through leaves like a nature-themed strobe light. Hours pass in the strange, timeless way childhood hours do. You wander, explore, examine everything. You pick up sticks, throw rocks, poke suspicious holes in the ground with absolutely no fear of what might be inside. You invent games. You map trails in your head. You find a barn and spend 20 minutes debating whether it's abandoned or merely poorly maintained. You approach it anyway, because curiosity is stronger than caution. By late afternoon, your arms and legs are coated in dust, your hair is full of burrs, and your skin is developing a sunburn that will glow like a radioactive tomato later. You feel triumphant, exhausted, proud, larger than life. You've travelled, truly travelled, farther than many modern adults walk in a month. When you finally return home, your mother doesn't ask where you've been. She doesn't ask who you were with. She doesn't ask why you smell like pond water and someone's barn. She simply gestures toward the kitchen and says, "Wash your hands. Dinner's ready." And that is the magic of the 1950s. You can leave home with no plan, no supervision, and no sunscreen, wander through multiple ecosystems and minor legal infractions, and return a conquering hero. Sunburned, filthy, glowing with pride, and absolutely ready to do it again tomorrow. Fresh cement, lumber piles, giant holes in the earth, they call to you like a siren song. You treat construction zones as amusement parks, blissfully unaware that everything here wants you dead. A construction site in the 1950s is not fenced off, secured, monitored, or even mildly discouraged. It is simply there, an irresistible labyrinth of hazards waiting for a group of children with no survival instincts. You approach it with reverence, like an archaeologist uncovering forbidden ruins. Your heart thumps with the thrill of potential danger. In your mind, this place is a wonderland. In reality, it is a lawsuit waiting to happen. The first attraction is the lumber pile, a mountain of planks stacked haphazardly, practically begging to be climbed. The wood smells like sawdust and adventure. You scramble up the stack, testing each board with your foot, ignoring the ones that wobble ominously. Splinters lodge themselves deep in your hands, but you barely notice. Pain is a problem for future you. Present you as king of the lumber mountain. From the top you can see the entire site. Trenches snaking through the dirt, mounds of earth rising like miniature volcanoes, half-built walls casting oddly shaped shadows. The air hums with the metallic tang of nails and the faint whiff of gasoline from a generator that you definitely should not touch, but definitely will. Your friends spread out like scavengers at a feast. One immediately starts walking along a narrow beam as if auditioning for a circus with no safety net. Another discovers a stack of cinder blocks and begins building something important, which collapses instantly. Someone finds a ditch and declares it a secret base, despite it being neither secret nor structurally sound. You feel a rush of excitement. Every object here is a toy with consequences. The pièce de résistance, of course, is the fresh cement. Smooth, grey, cooling in the sun like a giant forbidden canvas. Your fingers twitch. Your toes tingle. You know you shouldn't touch it. Adults have yelled entire paragraphs about not touching it, but you are a child and therefore biologically incapable of resisting wet cement. You poke it, just a little, a perfect indentation. You stare at it with pride, then you write your name with a stick, immortalising your existence in a sidewalk that will crack in 10 years and confuse future homeowners. Nearby, you spot a partially filled hole, deep enough to be exciting, shallow enough to be survivable. You jump in. Instantly you are coated in dirt, triumphant and filthy. You try climbing out, slipping comically as your friends laugh. Eventually someone offers a hand, pulling you up onto the unstable rim which crumbles slightly. You all agree this is the greatest place on earth. Tools lie scattered around like relics: hammers, nails, a trowel, a tape measure that extends with a satisfying metallic shzwing. You play with these objects, completely ignoring the fact that every single one is capable of causing serious injury. Childhood in the 1950s is an ongoing trust fall with fate. Then you find it, the Holy Grail, a wheelbarrow. It sits there, empty and gleaming in the sun, waiting to be misused. You climb in while your friend grabs the handles. He begins pushing you across uneven ground, at speeds that defy both common sense and physics. You bounce and rattle like a loose bolt in a blender, laughing uncontrollably until the wheelbarrow hits a rock, sending you flying into a pile of sand. You stand up, coughing, blinking, spitting out grit, thrilled by your brush with mortality. The sounds of adult footsteps suddenly echo across the site. Everyone freezes. You and your friends scatter in all directions, sprinting away like startled deer. You leap over a trench, duck behind a half-built wall, then bolt toward the bushes. In seconds the site is empty, except for the trail of footprints you left in the cement, a tattletale bloom of evidence. Once safely away, you collapse in the grass, sweaty and exhilarated. You're covered in dust, your clothes are ripped, and a nail is somehow stuck to your sock. You brush yourself off, grin at your friends, and declare the adventure a massive success. Because in the 1950s, construction sites aren't dangerous. They're destiny. And every near-death experience is just another story you'll forget to tell your parents until you're much, much older. You fall off a bike, a fence, a tree, a random curb. Every 1950s child had permanently skinned knees that looked like geographic terrain. Crying is discouraged unless bones are visible. In the 1950s, falling isn't an accident, it's a lifestyle. Your entire childhood is a compilation of impacts, crashes, tumbles, and the occasional faceplant into something organic. Adults don't ask, "Did you get hurt?" They ask, "How bad is it?" And unless the injury involves visible protrusion or a limb bending at a poetic angle, you're expected to dust yourself off and continue whatever deeply unsafe activity led to this moment. Your day begins with a bike crash. Not a dramatic one, just the kind where your tyre nudges a rock the size of a raisin and sends you flying like a disgruntled bird. You skid across the pavement, producing the familiar burning sensation of asphalt exfoliation. When you stand up, your knee is scraped open in a beautiful mottled display of red, pink and gravel. You admire it like a tattoo of honour. Then you spit on your hand, wipe the wound in a way that does absolutely nothing to clean it, and hop back on your bike because momentum waits for no child. Minutes later, you fall off a fence. The fence, for the record, was not meant to be climbed. It even hinted at its boundaries by wobbling ominously. But you ignored the warning because there was a higher fence post calling to you. Your foot slips, your shirt snags, and you go down dramatically, landing in a patch of weeds that smell faintly of mildew and disappointment. You lie there for a moment, assessing whether anything feels broken. Something does feel broken, your pride. But bones? Bones are fine. So you stand up, pull a burr out of your hair and continue climbing, because learning lessons is for future generations. By mid-morning, you've already suffered at least 2 minor falls and 1 near-fatal overreaction where you thought you'd broken your wrist but had actually just landed funny. You cradle your wrist for 5 minutes, milking the sympathy from your friends, before it suddenly stops hurting and you forget it existed. This is the 1950s version of healthcare. Later, you attempt to walk along the curb like it's a balance beam in the Olympics. You wobble once, twice, and then dramatically lose control, pinwheeling your arms as if battling invisible bees. You land directly on your elbow, it throbs. You hiss through your teeth, but you do not cry because your friends are watching and they will never let you live it down. Instead, you stand up and announce, "I meant to do that," which convinces no one but satisfies the social contract of playground dignity. Every injury comes with a soundtrack, the rip of fabric, the thud of impact, the hiss of breath being sucked in quickly, the distant adult yelling, "You better not be bleeding on my grass." The smells are just as vivid, sweat, dust, and the antiseptic tang of dirt mixed with blood. Nature has provided a free exfoliating service, and your knees are signed up for the premium package. Once in a while, something more dramatic happens. You slip on wet grass and skid down a hill like a fleshy toboggan. You misjudge the distance between branches and catch your chin on a tree limb. You run full speed into a trash can during an intense game of tag, launching both you and the trash can into a slapstick tumble that would win awards if anyone had a camera. Still, crying remains socially unacceptable. Crying summons adults, and adults summon consequences like the dreaded "come inside and sit down." In the 1950s, sitting inside is worse than injury. It is boredom incarnate, so you swallow the tears, grit your teeth, and declare yourself healed. By late afternoon, your legs look like a topographical map, scrapes, scabs, little bruises blooming like watercolour paintings. Each mark tells a story. Here's where you fell off the rope swing. Here's where you tripped over your own enthusiasm. Here's where the picnic table betrayed you. Your body is a Patreon exclusive archive of questionable choices. When you finally limp home, your mother glances at your injuries, scrubs them with iodine that burns like the fires of 1,000 suns, slaps a bandage on only the most dramatic scrape and says, "Good as new," and somehow she's right. Because in the 1950s, kids don't bounce back, they ricochet, and tomorrow you'll proudly fall off everything all over again. Someone discovers a garden hose and suddenly the entire block is drenched. Hydration comes from hose water that tastes faintly of rubber and childhood immunity challenges. It starts innocently enough. One kid turns on the hose to fill a bucket, or water a plant, or clean something that has never been cleaned before. But the moment that first spray arcs through the air, glittering in the sunlight like a shimmering invitation to chaos, the neighbourhood children are drawn to it like moths to a poorly regulated flame. Within seconds, a small gathering forms. Within minutes, alliances are built. Within moments, an all-out aquatic war begins. The hose becomes the Excalibur of suburbia. Whoever wields it holds the power of weather itself, summoning impromptu rainstorms over shrieking friends who scatter in all directions. The water pressure fluctuates unpredictably, sometimes a gentle mist, sometimes a fire hose-level blast that knocks a lightweight child backward into a bush. No one complains. These are accepted hazards of summer warfare. Your bare feet slap against the wet pavement as you run, leaving streaks of muddy footprints like a trail of evidence for future investigators. The air is warm, buzzing with cicadas and laughter. The smell of wet grass mixes with the metallic scent of hose water, creating a fragrance that every adult now nostalgically associates with simpler days and minor bacterial risks. Buckets, cups, and old tin cans become weapons of opportunity. Someone drags out a kiddie pool, which immediately becomes both a reservoir and a slip hazard. A kid with startling aim nails you in the face with a full cup of water from 10 feet away. You sputter, momentarily blinded, tasting the distinct flavour of hose water, warm rubber, mild dirt, and a faint aftertaste of, should this be drinkable? You drink it anyway, of course. Because in the 1950s, hydration is not a luxury, it's whatever comes out of the nearest spigot. You gulp the water straight from the hose, letting it gush over your hands first because it's always too hot for the first 5 seconds, heated to near boiling after sitting in the sun. After that, it becomes refreshingly cool, crisp, and only a little bit suspicious. The water fight grows in scale. Older kids join, bringing strategic minds and questionable tactics. Someone suggests building trenches, which devolves into digging holes your parents will later yell about. Someone else fills a mop bucket and tries to carry it into battle, only to trip and drench themselves entirely. The group roars with laughter. At some point, The hose changes hands. This moment is pivotal. The hose holder becomes a benevolent rain god or a tyrannical dictator depending on mood. If they're feeling generous, they create a rainbow mist everyone can run through. If they're feeling chaotic, they blast unsuspecting victims in the ear with a stream so strong it could knock over a toddler. The water darkens patches of grass into deep green, coats the sidewalk in reflective sheen, and turns dirt patches into mud pits begging for someone to fall in. Someone always does, sometimes on purpose, sometimes face first. You cheer either way. As the battle continues, the kids develop strategies far more complex than schoolwork ever taught them. Ambushes, flanking maneuvers, diversions involving decoy cups. A kid hides behind a trash can lid like a medieval shield, only to discover hose pressure easily bypasses such defences. Another climbs a tree branch to get the high ground, forgetting that water sprays upwards with surprising reach. But eventually the sun dips lower. Shadows stretch long across the yard. The hose sputters, then coughs out a final spray like an exhausted dragon. Parents begin calling names from porches, their voices cutting through the fading laughter. And just like that, the war ends, not with surrender, but with dinner. You stand soaking wet, hair plastered to your forehead, shirt clinging to your skin. Dirt smudges your legs, your feet squish in your shoes. You're cold in a way that feels earned, victorious, alive. Tomorrow the hose will lie in the yard like a dormant relic, waiting patiently for the next spark of summer mischief. But right now, you head home dripping, tired, slightly pruned, and glowing with the pure joy of childhood chaos. Because nothing bonds a neighbourhood like a hose, a summer afternoon, and water of deeply questionable purity. The moment you hear the tinny chimes of the ice cream truck, you sprint like your life depends on it. Currency includes nickels, dimes, and occasionally a handful of Linton Hope. The sound appears first as a faint jingle in the distance, thin, metallic, slightly off-key, as if played on an enchanted xylophone that survived 3 wars and a divorce. But to a 1950s child, that sound is more powerful than any school bell or fire alarm. It triggers something primal. Your pupils dilate, your heart jolts. Your hands begin conducting a rapid inventory of pockets, searching for loose change that may or may not exist. You drop whatever you're doing, stick, ball, younger sibling, and sprint toward the street with the urgency of someone escaping a burning building. Your friends hear it too. Bodies materialize from yards, porches, shrubs, as if summoned by a mystical desert beacon. Children who were moments ago lying in the grass contemplating clouds suddenly move with Olympic speed. A kid with a twisted ankle finds miraculous healing. A kid who said he was going home for the day reappears at full velocity. The ice cream truck is the great equalizer. By the time the truck rounds the corner, the entire neighbourhood is assembled, panting, sunburned, and hopeful. You scan your palm. 2 nickels, a button, a rock that felt important earlier, and 1 heroic dime. It's enough. Probably. The ice cream truck doesn't operate on strict economic principles anyway. Half the transactions rely on optimism, charm, or the ice cream man being in a good mood. The truck itself is a thing of beauty, painted with fading cartoon characters and decorated with stickers that look like they were peeled from cereal boxes. The side panel displays a menu of offerings that may or may not be in stock, depending on the whims of fate and refrigeration. Rocket pops, fudgesicles, orange push-ups. Those rectangular ice cream sandwiches wrapped in paper that melted the moment it touched your hand. When the window slides open, cold air spills out, a blast of frosty heaven into the hot summer world. The ice cream man greets you with the weary but gentle energy of someone who has spent their entire day handing sugar to children, who scream at a volume typically reserved for natural disasters. One by one, kids place their orders, money exchanges hands with the speed of a back alley deal. Prices are inconsistent, sometimes changing mid-sentence. You hold your breath as you hand over your pile of coins. The ice cream man counts them, glances at your hopeful face and nods. You're approved. Triumph surges through your chest. You choose your treat carefully. This is not a decision to be taken lightly. The rocket pop promises patriotic flavours of red, white, and blue, though they all taste vaguely like coloured sugar and freezer air. The fudgesicle is rich, cold, and melts faster than your ability to eat it. The push-up is a sticky engineering marvel, coating your fingers in orange residue until you resemble a citrus crime scene. Whatever you choose, the first bite is pure magic, cold sweetness cutting through summer heat, melting instantly on your tongue. Around you, kids sit on curbs or sprawl on lawns, unwrapping their treats with reverence. Ice cream drips down small hands. Someone drops theirs in the grass and immediately bursts into the kind of grief usually reserved for Greek tragedies. Another kid manages to smear chocolate across his entire face in under 10 seconds. The truck pulls away eventually, music echoing faintly as it disappears down the block. You watch it go with a sense of melancholy, knowing it will return, but not knowing when. The ice cream truck exists on its own mysterious schedule, appearing only when you least expect it, but most need it. You finish your treat slowly, savouring every bite before the sun finishes melting it into a sweet puddle. Sticky, satisfied, slightly chilled, you lean back on the warm pavement, letting the sugar settle into your bloodstream like a tranquilizer. For a moment, everything is perfect. Summer air, laughter echoing around the neighbourhood, the taste of cold sweetness on your tongue. Because in the 1950s, nothing summons joy or children from the far corners of the earth quite like the tinny music of an ice cream truck. Baseball with no gloves, football with no padding, dodgeball with surprisingly dense balls, all performed with a level of recklessness that would bankrupt a modern ER. In the 1950s, every backyard transforms into a stadium the moment a ball appears. It doesn't matter whose yard it is, who owns the ball, or whether the yard's even remotely suitable for sports. Flat surfaces are optional, hazards are plentiful and rules are fluid. Children gather with the single shared understanding that they will play something vaguely athletic and completely unsafe. Baseball is almost always the first choice. Gloves are rare, because why cushion your hands when you could simply slam a fast-moving projectile into your bare palm and pretend it didn't hurt that much? The bat is usually a dented aluminum tube or a suspiciously heavy wooden stick that might once have been part of a fence. The bases are improvised: a rock, a shoe, someone's jacket, and a patch of dirt that everyone agrees feels like third. Pitching is violent and personal. The pitcher winds up like they're reenacting World War II artillery procedures. The ball whizzes through the air with enough spin to threaten small wildlife. When it connects with the bat, usually through luck, physics, or divine intervention, it soars directly into a bush, onto a neighbour's porch, or toward the head of a child who is not paying attention. If someone gets hit by the ball, they're encouraged to walk it off, even if they've temporarily lost feeling in their left arm. Football is next. No helmets, no pads, no adult supervision. The field is a backyard sprinkled with sprinkler heads, hidden holes, thorny bushes, and one ominous tree root eager to sabotage someone mid-sprint. Teams form based on whoever stands closest to each other. The ball is hiked, and immediately the game devolves into a chaotic stampede of elbows, knees, and questionable tackles. The grass stains are immediate, the injuries are inevitable. Touch football lasts exactly 30 seconds before someone insists on real tackling. You collide with your friends enthusiastically, hitting the ground, with a force that compresses your spine in new and exciting ways. When someone is knocked breathless, the group gathers around, asking if they're okay while simultaneously laughing at the noise they made when they fell. The injured child gives a thumbs up to avoid sitting out, because in the 1950s, sitting out is worse than getting your bell rung. Then comes dodgeball, the sport that future adults will remember vividly in both nostalgia and therapy. The ball is heavy, rubbery, and dense enough to qualify as a blunt weapon. It whistles through the air like a missile. You and your friends scatter, duck, scream, and hurl balls with unrestrained joy. When the ball hits you, it leaves a red mark in the shape of your bad decisions, but you pop back up instantly, fueled by adrenaline and peer pressure. Sometimes new hybrid sports emerge: baseball, football, dodgeball, tag, a chaotic creation involving a jump rope, 2 sticks, and an old tyre that no one fully understands but everyone agrees is fun. Rules shift constantly. Arguments break out. Someone always yells, "That doesn't count." Someone else yells, "Yes, it does." A third kid eats grass not because they fell, but because they're 7 and curious. There are hazards everywhere: broken concrete slabs, beehives, rusty fences, but they only add to the thrill. Your feet pound the dirt. Your lungs burn from laughing. Sweat trickles down your temples. Somewhere, an adult glances out the window, sees the whirlwind of chaos, shrugs, and returns to folding laundry. The game only ends when someone starts crying and it's decided their tears are inconvenient. Someone's mum calls them home. The ball gets stuck in a tree, but even then, you refuse to quit. You climb the tree, you get the ball, you run back to the yard triumphant. Because in the 1950s, backyard sports aren't about winning or losing. They're about surviving, thriving, testing your bones against gravity and each other, creating childhood memories one bruise at a time. And somehow, despite the danger, the chaos, and the lack of protective equipment, you wouldn't change a thing. Matches, firecrackers, random flammable debris, a perfect afternoon activity. The adults assume you'll learn responsibility through minor burns. There's something about fire that speaks directly to the soul of a 1950s child. Maybe it's the flicker, maybe it's the danger, maybe it's the intoxicating scent of burning paper mixed with impending consequences. Whatever the reason, the moment you discover a book of matches, or worse, a half-used box of firecrackers, you become a tiny, chaotic demigod with the power to summon flames on command. The setup is always the same. You and your friends gather behind someone's garage, a location selected specifically because adults rarely walk back there unless they're retrieving garden tools or hiding from their responsibilities. The air is warm. The ground is dusty. The wind is just breezy enough to make everything slightly more dangerous than it needs to be. You strike a match. It flares to life with that iconic shh sound, releasing a scent so nostalgic and forbidden, it feels like inhaling rule-breaking. Your eyes widen. Your friends gasp dramatically. You hold the flame like a medieval torchbearer about to enter a dragon's lair. Then you drop it on a pile of leaves to see what happens. What happens is, they catch fire immediately. You panic for 3 full seconds, then remember you are a scientist of destruction. You stomp the flames out, smothering the fire with your shoe until the smoke rises in thin, curling ribbons. Your shoe now smells like burnt foliage and questionable decisions. You all nod approvingly. Experiment successful. Next come the firecrackers, little paper cylinders of unregulated adrenaline. Someone lights one, throws it, and then all of you run away as if you've committed a felony. It pops with a sharp crack that echoes across the neighbourhood. Birds scatter. A dog starts barking. A parent yells something unintelligible from a window. You all laugh because nothing bad happened this time. Feeling emboldened, your group attempts more elaborate stunts. You make a tiny campfire out of twigs. You find an empty tin can and use it as a furnace to melt crayons, which boil into a rainbow lava that stains everything it touches. You drop a pine cone into the fire just to see if it explodes. It doesn't, but the suspense is thrilling. At one point, a kid produces a magnifying glass. Suddenly the game evolves from matches to solar-powered destruction. You aim the beam of concentrated sunlight at blades of grass, watching them smoulder as if obeying your command. This feels like sorcery. You're one step away from demanding villagers bow before you. Then there's the smoke bombs, homemade contraptions created by mixing things you absolutely should not mix. They emit plumes of coloured smoke that drift lazily through the alley, like some kind of whimsical chemical mistake. You cough a little, you smile anyway. Childhood lungs are apparently immune to everything. Inevitably someone gets burned. Not seriously, just enough to sting and leave a memory. A match is held too long. A spark lands on a bare arm. A firecracker ignites faster than expected. The injured child yelps, shakes their hand, and immediately pretends it doesn't hurt. Tears form in the corners of their eyes, but they blink aggressively until the moisture goes away. Everyone gathers around and inspects the wound with an air of clinical expertise, shouting advice like, "Blow on it, put dirt on it, you'll be fine unless it turns purple." No adult is informed. Eventually the scent of smoke drifts into the house, and a parent steps outside with that universal expression of suspicion. "What are you kids doing back here?" they ask, squinting at the cloud of smouldering leaves, melted Crayola residue, and one child holding a magnifying glass like a guilty wizard's apprentice. "Nothing," you all say in perfect unison. The parent sighs, mutters something about learning the hard way, and goes back inside, proving once again that fire safety in the 1950s relies entirely on faith, luck, and the belief that minor burns build character. When the flames finally die down and the matches are spent, you look around at your smoky empire of chaos. Your fingers smell like sulphur. Your clothes smell like a campfire. Your heart feels oddly peaceful. Fire, after all, is the original entertainment. And tomorrow, you'll probably do it again, because in the 1950s, childhood responsibility is optional. But playing with fire is practically a rite of passage. This stick transforms any creek into a universe of possibilities. You stir mud, flick algae, jab mysterious shapes, and occasionally assist a frog against its will. The creek is your kingdom, a winding ribbon of murky water that cuts through the woods like nature's own chaotic playground. It smells faintly of wet dirt, old leaves, and the subtle promise of questionable microorganisms. Sunlight glints off ripples. Minnows dart beneath the surface like tiny nervous commuters. The occasional dragonfly hovers above the water, shimmering iridescently before zipping away to attend important dragonfly business. And in your hand, the stick, the universal childhood tool, a wand, a sword, a staff of exploration. It is never the same stick. It is whichever one feels right today. Long enough to reach deep into the water, sturdy enough to poke things bravely, and flexible enough to snap dramatically at the least convenient moment. You hold it proudly, like the world's smallest wizard. Your first act as creek monarch is stirring the mud. You swirl the stick in circles until the water clouds into a murky stew of silt and enthusiasm. Your friend yells, "Make it deeper," as if you possess geological authority. You plunge the stick downward. The mud bubbles. Something shifts at the bottom, either a rock or the start of a new ecosystem you've accidentally awakened. Next comes algae flicking. Sheets of slimy green life cling to rocks like nature's version of snot. You scrape at them with your stick, watching them loosen and drift downstream like defeated sea monsters. Your shoes, which are technically creek shoes and permanently damp, squish as you move along the edge. Then you see it, the mysterious shape. Every creek has one. Sometimes it's a half-buried log. Sometimes it's a patch of leaves. Sometimes it's a shadow that looks suspiciously like a snake, or possibly just your imagination trying to spice things up. You jab it cautiously. It does not move. You jab again, harder. Still nothing. You lean in closer, heart pounding with the thrill of potential danger. You jab it a third time, and it turns out to be a rock. Satisfied with your bravery, you continue your patrol. A frog leaps nearby, plunking into the water with a sound that echoes like a tiny cannonball. Naturally, you attempt to help it reach safety, which in your mind involves scooping it up with your stick and placing it gently on the nearest rock. The frog does not appreciate this. The frog launches itself back into the water immediately, proving that your version of assistance is not universally desired. Your friend challenges you to a game of dare you to step on that. You step on everything: slippery stones, muddy banks, submerged logs. Each one is a test of balance and fate. You wobble, you slip, you regain your footing with the grace of someone who has fallen many times before and survived through sheer stubbornness. Eventually, the two of you discover a deeper pool, the sacred swimming hole, which is definitely too shallow for swimming but perfect for splashing. You plunge your stick into its depths, stirring up ancient sediments from civilizations long past. This is where tadpoles live. This is where secrets lie. This is where you will absolutely fall in at some point today. As you explore, you build dams with rocks, sculpting the water flow like a tiny mud-covered engineer. You declare yourself master of the creek current. You fashion a miniature raft out of twigs and leaves, launching it downstream with the solemnity of a Viking funeral. It travels 3 feet before sinking. You salute it anyway. Hours slide by unnoticed. The sun climbs. Your skin tans. Your socks reach new levels of saturation. At one point, you sit on a warm rock, letting your feet dangle in the water while you swirl your stick lazily in the current. You feel peaceful, content, and slightly itchy from unknown creek particles. Eventually the stick breaks, tragically, suddenly, and with a crack that feels personal. You hold its remains in quiet mourning. But the creek provides. Another perfect stick lies waiting nearby, as reliable as childhood itself. With your new tool, you march downstream toward your next discovery, ready to battle mud, menace algae, and accidentally annoy more amphibians. Because in the 1950s, all you need for an epic adventure is a creek, an afternoon, and a stick that can do absolutely anything. You wander home only to inhale a peanut butter sandwich, some suspicious potato chips, and a cup of milk that has definitely been sitting out longer than recommended. Lunch in the 1950s isn't so much a meal as it is a refueling stop, short, efficient, and nutritionally chaotic. You burst through the door, sweaty, dusty, half sunburned, and vibrating with the lingering adrenaline of creek adventures and mild concussions. Your mother, who has already spent 4 hours cleaning a kitchen that will immediately be ruined again, gestures vaguely toward the counter. There sits your lunch, the same triumvirate of staples you've had since infancy. The peanut butter sandwich arrives without ceremony. 2 slices of white bread, soft, spongy, capable of being rolled into dense dough balls during moments of boredom, encase a thick layer of peanut butter that could mortar bricks. It sticks to the roof of your mouth instantly, gluing your tongue in place like edible cement. You chew anyway, because this is what lunch is, and questioning it would break the ancient suburban covenant. The potato chips are always questionable. They are thin, greasy, lightly curled, and come from a bag that was probably left open on the counter since yesterday's dinner. They contain 3 acceptable textures: crunchy, too crunchy, and the mysterious limp one that tastes like regret. You eat every single chip because children, like raccoons, do not discriminate. Then there's the milk. The milk has been sitting out long enough to reach room temperature, which in the summer means warm enough to raise mild concerns. You take a sip anyway. It tastes fine, not good, not bad, just fine. In that way milk does, when it has entered its philosophical period, pondering whether it wants to be a liquid or cheese. You drink it because hydration is important, and because asking for water is somehow more complicated. As you eat, the kitchen hums with the familiar sounds of midday suburban life. The refrigerator rattles. A fly buzzes lazily near the window. The radio plays some upbeat tune about love, heartbreak or tractors, unclear which. but you tap your foot anyway. The air smells faintly of dish soap, peanut butter, and the faint funk of your own creak-drenched clothing. Your mother moves around the kitchen with efficient grace, wiping counters, folding towels, cutting crusts off your sibling's sandwich, even though she absolutely did not cut yours. Occasionally she glances at the dirt smudges on your legs, shakes her head, and decides this is a problem for later. Right now, silence is the goal, and the peanut butter sandwich accomplishes that beautifully. Halfway through lunch, you pause to breathe. The peanut butter has congealed into a paste that feels like you're smuggling adhesive in your mouth. You attempt to swallow, nearly suffocating yourself, and immediately chase it with a heroic gulp of warm milk. Success. Your airway remains clear. You live to fight another day. Your sibling wanders in, staring at your chips with envy. You guard them like a dragon hoarding treasure. The room fills with silent tension. Your mother diffuses the situation by giving them an apple, which they reject on principle. You offer one chip. Peace is restored. The sandwich disappears in under a minute. The chips crumble into submission. The milk vanishes because drinking it quickly avoids thinking too hard about it. You lick the remaining peanut butter from your fingers, sticky, salty, delicious, and wipe your hands on your shorts, which were already filthy. A napkin was never part of this equation. Then comes the best part, the moment after lunch when you stand, stretch, and feel energy surge back into your body. The food settles like fuel in a race car. Your legs twitch with eagerness. Your brain lights up with new ideas, mostly bad ones, but exciting nonetheless. Your mother sighs as you head toward the door, already bracing for the additional laundry, more scraped knees, and the growing pile of objects you'll collect and leave in your pockets. "Be back later," she says. You nod, halfway out the door already, the screen slamming behind you with the force of destiny. Lunch has done its job. The world awaits. And you, powered by peanut butter, semi-stale chips and existential milk, are unstoppable. Your parents shoo you out again. The house is for adults. The yard is your natural habitat. You accept this without question because everyone else does too. Inside the house, adults move through rooms with purpose, folding laundry, paying bills, taking mysterious phone calls, and generally doing things that look boring or stressful or both. Meanwhile, you stand in the doorway, sticky from peanut butter, smelling faintly of creek water and summer heat, radiating childish chaos like a small, unlicensed nuclear reactor. Your mother takes one look at you and gestures toward the back door. "Go play," she says, as if it's the most obvious solution to every problem. And in the 1950s household ecosystem it is. You step onto the porch, squinting into the bright afternoon sun. It hits you like a warm, glowing invitation to mischief. Outside, the world is loud, chaotic, unpredictable, perfect. The air smells of freshly cut grass, someone grilling burgers 3 houses away, and the faint chemical tang of a neighbour repainting their picket fence. Birds chirp overhead. A lawn sprinkler ticks rhythmically. Somewhere, a screen door slams, another child released into the wild. Immediately, your legs take over. You're running before you even decide to. Across the yard, down the driveway, toward the nearest friend's house. Childhood is 90% sprinting towards something exciting and 10% limping home afterward. You skid to a halt in the front yard, kicking up a cloud of dust that settles on your already filthy shoes. You look around. There are kids everywhere, as if the entire neighbourhood has collectively agreed that indoors is where fun goes to die. One friend appears from behind a bush carrying a stick. Another emerges from their garage holding a deflated ball, which will somehow still be used in at least 3 competitive games. A third child rolls into the scene on a bike missing half its essential parts. You greet each other with nods, grins, and the immediate understanding that you will spend the next several hours inventing activities that defy logic, rules, and occasionally physics. The yard itself becomes your headquarters. The grass is patchy. The dirt is warm. The shade under the maple tree feels 10 degrees cooler, making it a sacred meeting zone. You drop to your knees, examining ants as they march in complicated little patterns, convinced you can interpret their communication if you watch closely enough. You cannot, but it feels important. After approximately 30 seconds of observation, someone suggests a game. The game doesn't exist yet. It's a rough concept involving running, yelling, throwing something you shouldn't, and stopping only when someone gets hurt or bored. Rules are created on the fly. Boundaries are arbitrary. Every child interprets the objective differently. It is perfect. You race through yards, leap over hedges, crawl under picnic tables, and probably trespass without realizing it. No adult intervenes. Adults trust that kids outdoors are either A, playing, or B, playing too intensely. Either way, it's fine. If a window breaks or a flower bed gets flattened, it will be dealt with later using disciplined techniques like stern talking tos or sighing dramatically. Eventually, you wander away from the group for a moment of solo exploration. You examine dandelions, poke at a mossy patch with a stick, and briefly consider climbing the electrical pole before deciding the splinters would be too severe. You lie down in the grass, staring up at the sky, watching clouds drift lazily. One looks like a dinosaur. Another looks like your math teacher. You decide not to think too deeply about that. Then, the distant call of another friend pulls you back into motion. Kids operate on a hive mind frequency. If someone yells your name from 2 streets over, you somehow hear it. You bolt toward the sound, weaving between houses with the agility of a feral creature designed for suburban survival. The house fades behind you. It becomes irrelevant. The world outside is your domain. As the afternoon stretches on, you feel the soft ache of tired muscles and sun-warmed skin. Your clothes cling to you with dust, sweat, and evidence of your latest misadventures. But you're happy, deeply, simply happy in the way only a child who lives outdoors can be. Because in the 1950s, the house is a brief refueling station, a place to grab food, get a bandage, or dry off for 2 minutes. But outside? Outside is freedom. Outside is adventure. Outside is where childhood truly happens. Metal slides heated to approximately the surface of the sun, seesaws that launch children into orbit, and monkey bars designed by someone who hated rotator cuffs. The playground, in theory, is a place meant for joy, laughter, and healthy development. In the 1950s, however, it was more of a gladiatorial training arena disguised with pastel paint. Everything was built from solid steel, bolted into concrete, and engineered by individuals who apparently believed that children learn best when faced with multiple opportunities for minor catastrophe. The moment you step onto the playground, you feel it, the hum of danger. The sun sits high, baking every metal surface to temperatures that could lightly toast bread. You approach the slide cautiously, testing the rail with a fingertip. It burns. Naturally, you climb the ladder anyway. The rungs leave imprints on your palms. The slide itself is a shimmering silver ramp of pain, radiating heat waves like an offended dragon. You sit. You immediately regret sitting. But pride demands you continue. You push off, accelerating at a speed that defies all known laws of child physics. As you reach the bottom, you skid off the end, landing in a patch of gravel so sharp it could qualify as medieval weaponry. You stand, brushing pebbles from your shorts, slightly singed but victorious. Next, you head toward the seesaw, an instrument of chaos if there ever was one. The seesaw is simple. 1 board, 2 seats, unlimited potential for spinal realignment. You sit on one end while your friend climbs onto the other, grinning with a mischievous sparkle that suggests poor intentions. They push off hard. You rocket skyward like a human bottle rocket. For a moment, you experience weightlessness, pure freedom. Then gravity remembers you exist and tries to drag you back down with vengeance. You slam into the ground. Dust billows. The seesaw rebounds, sending your friend airborne. This pattern continues until one of you accidentally jumps off mid-cycle, causing the remaining rider to drop with the devastating impact of a small meteorite. This, too, is considered fun. Nearby stands the most feared structure of all, the monkey bars, a horizontal gauntlet of steel designed to test grip strength, courage, and the durability of childhood bones. The bars are spaced precisely 1 inch farther apart than your arms can comfortably reach, ensuring maximum struggle. You climb up, gripping the first bar. It is, of course, scorching hot. You swing to the next bar, your hands squeaking like distressed mice. Halfway across, your arms begin to tremble. The ground below is a mix of dirt, rocks, and disappointment. Falling is not ideal, but statistically likely. You reach out, miss the bar, and plummet, landing in a heap. Your pride takes more damage than your body. You immediately get back up because you refuse to be defeated by playground architecture. Then comes the merry-go-round, an innocent-looking disc that transforms into a centrifuge of chaos the moment children touch it. You and your friends pile on, gripping the handlebars as another kid pushes with the enthusiasm of someone trying to break the sound barrier. The world blurs. The wind roars in your ears. Your stomach begins sending polite warning signals that quickly become urgent. Eventually, momentum wins. You release your grip involuntarily and are flung into the grass with spectacular flair. You lie there, dizzy, laughing, reconsidering your life choices. For a moment, the sky spins like a merry-go-round of its own. But you recover. Kids always recover. Even the swings are dangerous. The chains pinch your fingers. The wooden seat creaks ominously. You pump higher and higher, convinced you might loop over the top bar despite physics and several failed attempts. At maximum height, you leap off, soaring through the air like a tiny daredevil with zero concept of consequence. You land sort of, your ankles wobble, your body tilts. But you stay upright, mostly. Around you, the playground buzzes with activity. Kids shriek with joy. Metal clangs. Dust clouds rise. The entire space feels like a training simulation for a future generation of stunt performers and parents. They sit far away on benches, sipping iced tea, glancing over occasionally to make sure no one is actively on fire. Because in the 1950s, playgrounds weren't designed to be safe. They were designed to build character, resilience, and an impressive tolerance for heat and gravity. And somehow, you loved every second. You huddle with friends for high-stakes trades involving baseball cards and marbles, each negotiation more intense than a Wall Street merger. In the economy of 1950s childhood, nothing holds more value than collectibles, especially when they are frayed, bent, or vaguely sticky from being carried in pockets full of dirt and ambition. You and your friends gather in a circle on the warm sidewalk, the sun beating down on your backs, the smell of chalk dust and fresh-cut grass hanging in the air. You sit cross-legged, leaning in like members of a secret society. This is not a casual hangout. This is an exchange summit. Baseball cards are spread out before you, arranged with reverence. Some are pristine, crisp as new dollar bills. Others look as if they've survived several natural disasters and one washing machine cycle. It doesn't matter. Every card holds value, not just economic value, but emotional currency, childhood mythology, and the golden glow of imagination. Your friend lays down a Mickey Mantle card like it's Excalibur. You gasp. You don't even breathe for a moment. This card could change the entire balance of power in your neighbourhood. In response, you offer your most prized possession, a slightly creased Willie Mays card and a marble that shines like a planet captured in glass. Negotiations begin. Everyone leans closer, voices lower, tension builds. Someone mutters, "That's a rip-off." Let's see. while another whispers, "Ask for the shooter marble too." The atmosphere is electric. You all turn into pint-sized financial strategists, calculating trades with the seriousness of diplomats negotiating a ceasefire. Marbles become the secondary currency of the realm. There are clear marbles, cat's eyes, swirls, galaxy marbles, and the precious steelies, metal spheres capable of both winning games and shattering bones. Owning a steely is simultaneously a blessing and a hazard. You keep yours wrapped in a tissue in your pocket, bringing it out only for the most serious deals or for intimidating your trading rivals. Someone proposes a three-way trade. Someone else objects, arguing that no three-way trade has ever been fair in the history of childhood. Offer sheets are metaphorically drafted, terms debated. The sidewalk floor becomes littered with piles of cards and marbles, each representing a potential fortune. Occasionally, a breeze threatens to blow away a high-value card, resulting in chaos and frantic scrambling. One friend always insists on adding bizarre conditions to deals. "I'll give you this Ted Williams card, but you have to give me your blue shooter and promise not to tag me during hide-and-seek today." Another kid tries a bait-and-switch with a card so worn you can barely tell if the player has a face. You call him out. He pretends he didn't realise. No one believes him. Once a deal is agreed upon, everyone pauses for the sacred ritual, the handshake, a solemn but sweaty oath, a binding contract enforced by playground law. Breaking a trade is the highest form of betrayal, a social crime punished by dramatic sulking and the threat of never being invited to someone's trampoline again. After the formal trading session, you move to the marbles ring, a chalk circle drawn with the precision of an ancient monument. The rules are unclear, widely interpreted, and frequently ignored. The objective seems to be hitting other marbles out of the ring, but half the kids invent rules mid-game to justify their questionable technique. Someone flicks a marble with such force that it shoots across the yard and disappears forever. The group holds a brief moment of silence. You crouch low, lining up your shot. Dust clings to your knees. Your thumb presses against your shooter, poised like a tiny catapult ready to unleash glory. You release. The marble arcs perfectly, then misses entirely. You shrug. The real goal, you decide, was style. Meanwhile, side deals continue. Someone trades a gum wrapper for a marble that is objectively worth 10 gum wrappers. Another kid announces he's retiring from trading, only to return seconds later with a new offer no one asked for. It's a marketplace driven by impulse, nostalgia, and the fact that none of you actually understand value. By late afternoon, the sun has softened, shadows stretching long across the sidewalk. You gather your winnings, a handful of new marbles, 2 new cards, and the satisfaction of knowing you negotiated like a champion of the schoolyard. Your pockets bulge, your fingers are dusty, your heart is full. Because in the 1950s, trading isn't just trading, it's strategy, it's drama, it's economy, it's childhood capitalism at its finest. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again, because fortunes rise and fall fast in the marble markets. You offer to help your dad with yard work, but mostly you get in the way, break something, or wander off carrying tools you shouldn't have. Helping your father in the yard sounds noble, heroic even. You imagine yourself standing tall beside him, handing over tools with precision, learning practical skills that will shape you into a competent adult someday. Instead, the moment you step outside, you immediately trip over the hose and nearly uproot a prized azalea. Your dad gives you a look, not angry, just deeply aware of the path he's chosen in life, and gently suggests you stand over there for a minute. A minute becomes 10, then 20, then somehow you wander off entirely. But before that happens, you attempt to contribute. Your father retrieves a rake from the shed and begins gathering leaves. You want to rake too, desperately. So he finds you a smaller rake, less a tool and more a prop, meant to allow you to help without endangering lives. You attack the leaf pile enthusiastically, scattering his neat stack like a golden explosion. Leaves fly into his shoes, into the flower beds, into the neighbour's yard. Your father pauses mid-rake, closes his eyes, and breathes in the serenity he wishes he had. Next, he lets you carry a tool, a wrench, maybe pliers. Possibly the wrong tool entirely, but he's too tired to argue. You grip it proudly, waddling behind him like a very determined duckling. He turns around for 5 seconds, and in that time you manage to misplace it. No one knows where it went. It may be in the grass, it may be buried, it may have been offered to another child in a complicated barter arrangement. Your father sighs, scratches his head, and mutters the universal fatherly phrase, "It was just right here," trying to be useful. You pick up fallen branches. Unfortunately, you don't pick up all the branches, only the long ones, which you swing behind you like a medieval flail. You accidentally smack a lawn chair. The lawn chair collapses. You apologise. Your dad says it's fine, but glances at the house as if contemplating a witness protection program. Then comes the mower. You're absolutely not allowed near the mower. To you, it is a magnificent roaring beast. To your father, it is an expensive piece of machinery and a lawsuit waiting to happen. He gives you a strict lecture on staying back this far, which you interpret loosely. Every time he looks up, you've migrated closer, inching toward the mower with the fascination of a moth nearing a flame. Eventually, he shuts it off completely until you agree to sit under the tree for a while and sort sticks by size, an activity you perform with the seriousness of an FBI evidence analyst. But even sorted sticks do not quell your desire to be helpful. You wander back over just as your father is trimming hedges. You ask to help. He says no. You ask again. He says no again, more firmly. Finally, he hands you a broom, hoping to give you a harmless task. You take the broom and immediately begin sweeping dirt onto the sidewalk instead of off it. Your father watches silently, wrestling with the decision to intervene or simply let the chaos unfold. At one point you discover the garden hose, a forbidden delight. You turn it on full blast and spray the driveway, then the grass, then your own feet, then, unintentionally, your father. He freezes, dripping, hair plastered to his forehead. You brace for impact, but instead, he just chuckles under his breath. That tired, half-defeated laugh reserved exclusively for parents who realize resistance is futile. Eventually you tire yourself out. You return the broom to a location that is absolutely not where it belongs. You wander toward the house, leaving behind footprints, broken twigs, and a father who loves you deeply but will absolutely redo every task you attempted. Still you tried, and in the 1950s, effort counts, even if the hose incident will be remembered for years. Because childhood helping isn't about efficiency, it's about enthusiasm, and accepting that sometimes love means pretending your kid didn't just lose your favourite wrench forever. You're finally allowed inside to watch a tiny black and white TV for exactly 30 minutes before being told screens rot your brain. The television sits in the living room like an ancient shrine, heavy, wooden, and humming faintly with the mysterious power of vacuum tubes. It is the size of a small refrigerator but displays images roughly the size of a postage stamp. The screen glows with a soft, static haze, as if the universe is whispering secrets through poor reception. Dust motes dance in the light beam. You sit cross-legged on the carpet, inches from the screen, because it's the only distance from which the picture looks less like a snowstorm. Your parents consider television a luxury, an event, a treat to be allocated sparingly, like cake or joy. They allow you 30 minutes, precisely timed, as though exceeding this limit would cause your entire brain to dissolve into cartoon mush. You've never seen a scientific study supporting this theory, but you trust them anyway. They seem very convinced. Today's approved programming might be a western, a cartoon, or the evening news, if no fun options are available and your parents feel you should be well-rounded. Whatever it is, you're thrilled. You adjust your position 3 times, searching for the sweet spot where the couch doesn't block your view and your siblings fidgeting won't ruin your concentration. Your father fiddles with the antenna, two thin metal rods called rabbit ears that must be positioned with surgical precision. He tilts them left. The picture worsens. He tilts them right. Still worse. He holds them in the air like a priest invoking divine clarity. The image stabilizes for a moment, a glorious picture of a cowboy riding into the sunset, and the moment he lets go, the screen dissolves into fuzz again. You learn a universal truth. The best picture quality occurs only when someone is physically touching the antenna, forever trapping them in that uncomfortable pose. Finally, the channel comes through clearly enough that you can distinguish characters from background scenery. The sound crackles but remains intelligible. Moments like these feel magical. An entire world beamed into your living room through invisible waves you absolutely do not understand. You watch your show with the rapture of a monk studying ancient texts. You absorb every line, every joke, every poorly animated scene. Commercials appear with jingles so catchy they will haunt your dreams. A cheerful announcer encourages you to buy cereal shaped like cartoon characters, or a toy that requires 16D batteries and supervision you will never receive. Your younger sibling, of course, sits too close, practically pressing their nose against the glass. Your mother warns them about radiation, a word she pronounces with great seriousness despite not knowing what it means. She places a yardstick on the floor to mark the approved viewing distance. You both ignore it. Halfway through your show, the screen flickers. You freeze. The picture rolls upward in a continuous loop, making every character appear to be ascending into heaven. Your father grumbles, whacks the side of the TV with the flat of his hand and miraculously restores the image. You applaud internally. He cracks a smile, proud of his technical expertise. The final few minutes of TV time feel like a countdown to doom. Your mother gives a gentle warning. 5 more minutes. You nod, clenching your jaw, trying to absorb every pixel of joy before your time expires. The hero wins. The villain falls. The episode ends with a freeze frame that lingers on screen for half a second too long, making it feel oddly profound. Then comes the inevitable. Turn it off. You obey, pressing the knob with exaggerated sorrow. The screen collapses into a shrinking dot of white light, fading into darkness like the last breath of your childhood happiness. Your reflection appears in the blank glass, dusty, sunburned, and mildly heartbroken. But strangely enough, you feel satisfied. Television, in its rationed scarcity, becomes precious, special. Something to anticipate with the eagerness of Christmas morning. And as you head back outside, blinking in the sunlight, you realise that 30 minutes of grainy magic is enough, at least until tomorrow. Your plate is stacked with roast beef, mashed potatoes, and vegetables boiled into submission. It is delicious, confusing, and aggressively beige. Dinner in the 1950s is an event of such ritualistic seriousness that it borders on theatrical. The table is set with care. Fork on the left, knife on the right, napkin folded in a triangle of unrealistic optimism. Your mother has been cooking for an hour, which in 1950s time means the house smells like a Norman Rockwell painting. Warm, savoury, and slightly smoky, depending on whether something boiled over. You sit down, still covered in the dust of your outdoor adventures, and stare at your plate. It resembles a miniature topographical map, Meat Mountain, Potato Valley of vegetable swamp. The roast beef is sliced thick, glistening with gravy that spreads across your plate like invading territory. It tastes incredible, but requires the jaw strength of a competitive lumberjack. You chew heroically, aware that quitting is a sign of a weakness. The mashed potatoes are the star, a fluffy peak of buttery perfection. They melt on your tongue with the softness of a warm cloud and the density of glue. You create a crater in the center, filling it with gravy until it resembles a geological formation only scientists and children could appreciate. You stir it once, twice, watching the buttery pool swirl hypnotically. This is as close as you will ever get to culinary art. Then there are the vegetables. Boiled carrots, boiled peas, boiled things. Everything is boiled, excessively boiled. Boiled so thoroughly that texture is no longer a concept but a memory. These vegetables do not crunch. They sigh. They slump on the plate, accepting their fate. You spear one with your fork, and it falls apart in a way that defies science. Your mother calls it healthy. You call it uncertain. Across the table, your father eats silently, newspaper folded nearby, fork moving with the mechanical precision of a man who has eaten this exact dinner since the Truman administration. He occasionally grunts approval, high praise in the 1950s culinary world. Your sibling kicks you under the table. You retaliate. A tense, silent foot war begins, lasting the entire meal. Halfway through dinner, your mother tells you to sit up straight, slow down, or the more existential stop looking at your potatoes like that. You comply briefly before drifting back into your preferred posture, hunched like a gremlin over a feast. Dinner is not about etiquette, it is about survival. Conversation drifts between adult topics, insurance, the lawn, someone's cousin getting a new job, and the only part you care about, dessert. You listen intently for any hint of sweets. A pie? Cookies? Is there jello? There is always jello. It jiggles. It sparkles. It holds fruit in suspended animation like a mid-century science experiment. You want it more than you've ever wanted anything in your life. But dessert comes with a catch. You must finish your vegetables. You stare at the limp peas with growing resentment. They stare back. You attempt creative strategies, mixing them with potatoes, hiding them under meat, feeding them to the dog. The dog betrays you by refusing them. Even animals have standards. Eventually, under your mother's watchful gaze, you shovel the vegetables into your mouth, grimacing through each mushy bite. Victory tastes like regret. When dessert finally arrives, it feels earned. A slice of pie so rich with butter and sugar it could anchor a ship. Or a bowl of vanilla ice cream melting just a little on the edges. Or the sacred jello, wobbling in the light like a dessert with secrets. You savour every bite, basking in the glow of triumphant glucose. As dinner ends, your plate is nearly clean, because in this decade, finish everything is not a suggestion but a commandment. You lean back, full, warm, and vaguely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of butter your body now contains. Your parents sip coffee. You contemplate the universe. The kitchen smells like home. And as you clear your plate, you realise something. Dinner may be beige, but it is the anchor of the day, comforting, predictable, and just chaotic enough to prepare you for the dangers of dessert negotiations tomorrow. After dinner, the entire neighbourhood reappears for hide-and-seek, kick the can, and other games that thrive in low-light danger. Evening descends slowly in the 1950s, first as a golden haze over the rooftops, then as long stretching shadows across the yards, and finally as a warm, dim blanket that whispers, "Go outside," and so you do. Every child does. Like cicadas emerging at dusk, you will pour into the street in a loose, excited swarm. The air is cooler now, smelling faintly of charcoal grills, lilac bushes, and someone's father smoking a pipe on the porch. The games begin naturally without planning or discussion. A single child kicks an old tin can, dented beyond recognition, and suddenly the entire neighbourhood has entered a state of competitive frenzy. "Kick the can," someone shouts. Rules are loosely remembered, then immediately overwritten by louder children who are better at improvisation than accuracy. Someone declares themselves the referee despite not understanding the job. Another child claims sanctuary near a tree that is absolutely not a designated safe zone. It doesn't matter. The universe is forgiving at dusk. You sprint across lawns, your bare feet slapping warm grass, tripping over roots you swear weren't there earlier. The shadows grow trickier, hiding holes, hoses, and that one section of cracked sidewalk everyone always forgets about until they faceplant onto it. Darkness plays the role of both teammate and enemy. helping you hide but also ensuring you collide with every trash can in a 3-block radius. Hide and seek begins just as the streetlights flicker on. The streetlights, of course, are unreliable narrators. Sometimes they glow bright and steady. Other times they flicker ominously like a haunted house prop. You choose a hiding spot behind Mrs. Callahan's hydrangeas, the worst possible choice because 1. The hydrangeas are tiny, and 2. You are not. Still, you crouch there, convinced that stillness will turn you invisible. You breathe loudly. You shift positions. A twig snaps, echoing across the yard like a gunshot. You flatten yourself dramatically. You pray. The seeker approaches. You hold your breath. A mosquito lands on your cheek. You swat it, instantly revealing yourself. You dash toward base, limbs flailing, heart racing, fully prepared to vault a shrub if necessary. The seeker lunges. You trip, of course, because nightfall conspires with uneven ground. You skid across the grass, you pop back up, you run again. You make it to the tree, slapping the trunk with a triumphant yell. Next comes flashlight tag. No one has enough flashlights, and at least one flashlight doesn't work unless you shake it aggressively every 5 seconds. The beams slice through the dark in wavering arcs, illuminating dust, moths, and occasionally a startled cat who did not sign up for this. You hide behind a car, you hide behind a garbage bin, you hide in the open, unlit expanse of a yard, standing perfectly still like a confused scarecrow. Miraculously, it works. The laughter grows louder as the sky grows darker. You run until your lungs burn, your legs wobble, and the sweat on your forehead cools in the night air. You're exhausted but exhilarated. Every glimpse of fireflies sparks a frenzy. Someone accidentally steps in a puddle. Someone else claims to have seen a raccoon. You'll run anyway, because adventure is more important than accuracy. Adults watch from porches, sipping drinks and chatting. They aren't hovering or directing. They're simply there, a comforting presence in the background, letting childhood unfold organically, beautifully, and at full speed. Occasionally a parent calls out "careful," which every child interprets as "run faster." Finally, the night turns from playful dim to real darkness. Shapes blur. The risk of tripping skyrockets. Someone inevitably crashes into a shrub, and someone else walks directly into a mailbox. The game's slow. Breathless, you flop onto the cool grass with your friends, staring up at the emerging stars. Crickets chirp. A breeze rustles the leaves above. It's peaceful. It's perfect. It's the exhale at the end of a long, chaotic day. And then, from across the neighborhood, a voice rings out. Time to come inside. The spell breaks. Children vanish toward their homes. The street grows quiet. The night settles. But in your chest, the joy of dusk play burns warm. Proof that some of the best adventures happen when visibility is low and the rules are even lower. You're dunked into a bathtub filled with lukewarm water, already slightly grey from siblings who went first. There is soap in your eye. It burns. Evening bath time in the 1950s is less a hygienic ritual and more a chaotic assembly line of wet children, questionable water, and exhausted parents holding on to their last sliver of patience. By the time it's your turn, the bath has already served as a human crockpot for at least 2 other kids. The water's warm in patches, cold in others, and tinted a shade that suggests someone spent the afternoon rolling through a field or possibly a coal mine. You lower yourself in reluctantly, fully aware that this water contains more memories than moisture. It sloshes around you with a vague murkiness, smelling faintly of soap, grass, and childhood regret. Your mother swoops in with a washcloth, scrubbing your arms with the determination of someone trying to sand a piece of furniture. Dirt lifts off in streaks. You watch it swirl into the water and become one with the ecosystem. The water grows cloudier. You grow more resigned. Then comes the soap. The soap is always the same bar, shrunken, slightly slimy, and incapable of producing real lather unless it is grated directly onto your skin. Your mother rubs it into the washcloth until it froths angrily, then attacks your face with the precision of a military operation. Despite your best efforts, closing your eyes, holding your breath, you somehow end up with a glob directly in one eye. It stings with the intensity of betrayal. You flail. You ask if you're dying. Your mother says, "You're fine." In the tone parents reserve for non-emergencies, they don't feel like addressing. Once your face is cleared, she moves to the hair. Shampoo in the 1950s is more like scented detergent. It smells overwhelmingly floral, a fragrance so strong it could stun a moose. She pours a giant glob onto your head and scrubs like she's trying to reveal a secret message hidden in your scalp. The suds foam dramatically, cascading down your forehead and back into the already morally questionable bathwater. After the scrubbing comes the rinse, a terrifying procedure involving a plastic cup and gravity. You tilt your head back as instructed, but it never works. The water pours directly into your ears, down your nose, and occasionally into your mouth. You sputter like a drowning walrus. Your mother says, "Hold still," as if that will somehow rewire your physical reflex to inhaling water. When rinsing is finally complete, you cling to the sides of the tub, exhausted and defeated. But you're not done. Now it's time for one of two horrors. Your mother lifts your ears to inspect the hidden regions where dirt loves to hide. If any grime is discovered, the entire cleaning process is restarted. You silently pray for cleanliness. You know you've hit rock bottom when she begins clipping your toenails while you're still in the tub. The sensation is mildly terrifying and produces an amount of anxiety usually reserved for the tax season in adulthood. At last, she decides you're clean enough, a phrase with very flexible definitions. She hoists you out of the tub like a dripping sack of potatoes. Water floods the floor. The bath mat absorbs approximately none of it. Your mother wraps you in a towel that is either fresh and warm or somehow damp and chilly from earlier use. She rubs your hair with it until you can barely see or breathe, then releases you into the hall to finish drying off on your own, which you inevitably do by sprinting around the house, leaving wet footprints everywhere. Your siblings pass you like ghostly apparitions, half-dressed, hair sticking up in chaotic swirls, smelling faintly of bubblegum shampoo and soap residue. You are now one of them, clean enough, dazed, and temporarily shiny. As you crawl into your pajamas, skin slightly itchy from leftover suds, you feel a strange sense of accomplishment. You have survived bath time. You have endured soap eye, shampoo torture, and water of dubious origins. Tomorrow you'll be filthy again by breakfast. But for now, you're squeaky clean, or at least cleanish, by 1950s standards. Finally in bed, your body aching from play, your hair smelling like hose water and dirt. You drift off knowing tomorrow will be the exact same, and somehow that feels perfect. The day has drained you in the best possible way. Your limbs feel heavy, warm, and pleasantly sore. The kind of ache that comes from running, climbing, falling, splashing, negotiating, and narrowly avoiding injury for 12 straight hours. You climb into bed like a tiny battle veteran returning from the front lines of suburban childhood. The sheets stick to your slightly sunburned skin, cool and soft in contrast to the radiant heat still rising from your arms and cheeks. Your pillow smells faintly of summer, grass, sweat, and the lingering sweetness of the ice cream you smeared on yourself several hours earlier. The window is cracked open, allowing a gentle breeze to slip in and rustle the curtains. Crickets chirp outside with rhythmic consistency, as if someone hired them as your personal lullaby orchestra. Somewhere down the street a dog barks once, announcing nothing in particular, but somehow adding to the comforting soundtrack of nighttime. Your mind is tired but content, floating through foggy memories of the day. You think about the fort you built that collapsed twice before achieving structural stability for almost 6 minutes. You think about the creek, where you used a stick to poke at things scientists still don't fully understand. You think about the hose water fight, where your shirt became soaked, your hair plastered to your forehead, and your laughter echoed so loudly the neighbours peeked out to make sure you weren't on fire. The sunburn on your nose tingles. You press a cool spot of your pillow against it and sigh. It doesn't hurt, not really. It's the kind of sunburn that says, "You lived today." The kind that adults later try to avoid, but kids wear proudly, a glowing badge of reckless outdoor adventure. In the dim twilight of your room, shapes blur softly. Toys sit quietly on shelves, abandoned in favour of real-world entertainment. A baseball glove, a slingshot, a jar filled with marbles you traded for using questionable business ethics. Your treasures rest now, waiting patiently for tomorrow's chaos. Even your shoes, caked with mud, grass, and possibly cement, seem to exhale from the corner. Your parents move softly in the hallway. You hear your mother whisper something about finally worn out, followed by your father chuckling under his breath. You're too tired to protest, and besides, they're right. You are worn out, gloriously so. You close your eyes, letting the darkness settle around you like a warm blanket. Your body sinks deeper into the mattress. Each breath becomes slower, steadier. You can still taste the faint sweetness of dessert at dinner. Your stomach feels heavy in that comforting end-of-day way. Your fingers twitch occasionally, as if replaying some epic dodgeball throw or a daring leap off a seesaw. Right as you begin to drift, your mind visits one last scene. The group of neighbourhood kids disappearing into their homes at dusk, waving, shouting promises of tomorrow's adventures. You picture them now, some falling asleep as quickly as you are, some staying awake a little longer, staring at their ceilings, reliving the best parts of the day. It warms you, this invisible camaraderie of exhausted children tucked into beds across the block. The breeze lifts your curtain again, carrying with it the soft scent of freshly watered lawns and distant barbecue smoke. Your eyelids grow heavier, your breathing deepens. The sounds of the day fade, replaced by the quiet hum of nighttime, gentle, safe, familiar. Tomorrow will bring new scrapes, new discoveries, new arguments over marbles and baseball cards, new attempts at building something rickety and hazardous. It will bring running, climbing, fighting, forgiving, laughter that rattles your ribs, and a dinner so beige it becomes spiritual. Your last thought before sleep takes you is simple and pure, "I can't wait." And with that, sunburned, exhausted, and weirdly happy, you slip fully into dreams, still smelling faintly of hose water, freedom, and the perfect chaos of childhood. This Sears catalogue isn't just a book, it's your personal museum of unattainable treasures. You flip through the glossy pages, circling toys your parents will never buy because you already have sticks outside. Still, you dream. Chemistry sets that could start a suburban explosion. BB guns destined to worry neighbours, and dolls that blink in a way that feels mildly ominous. For a 1950s kid, this catalogue is hope, fantasy, and heartbreak, all bound in one thick, deliciously papery smell. The catalogue arrives in the mail like a sacred artifact, thick as a phone book, glossy as a magazine, and heavy with the weight of possibility. You hold it reverently, as though it contains the secrets of the universe. The cover alone is enough to send your imagination sprinting, smiling children playing with toys so pristine and clean they practically glow. You flip it open, and the world unfurls before you in Technicolor, even though you're looking at it in black and white. Every page you turn is a fresh assault on your self-control. You linger over the toy section, eyes widening at the sight of miniature trains looping around perfect layouts that include mountains, tunnels, bridges, and tiny pretend trees that look far sturdier than anything you could build. You imagine yourself as the proud conductor of this electric utopia, controlling the tracks like a benevolent rail baron. Then there are the dolls, rows upon rows of them. They blink, they sip from bottles, they wet themselves, which inexplicably seems to be a selling point. Some of them stare back at you with glassy eyes that hint at forbidden knowledge. You're not sure if you want them, or if you just want to avoid making them angry. Further in, you discover the chemistry sets. Glorious, dangerous chemistry sets. The pictures show happy children in spotless clothing mixing liquids, smiling confidently. completely unaware that real-life chemical reactions often lead to broken kitchen counters, scorched eyebrows, and visits from concerned neighbours. Still, you dream of donning goggles, sold separately, and conducting experiments that ideally would not burn down the garage. And then, there it is, the BB gun, the legendary item whispered about on playgrounds. You trace the picture with your fingertip, imagining yourself standing bravely on a patch of dirt, squinting one eye, aiming at an old can propped on a fence. You picture the recoil, the power, the inevitable lecture from your father about responsibility. You can almost hear your mother's sigh echoing from the next room. Your shopping list grows. You grab a pencil and begin circling items with reckless abandon. You circle tricycles you've outgrown. You circle a toy drum set you know your parents would never allow into the house because they value their sanity. You circle a tent big enough to live in permanently if your mother ever gets tired of washing your muddy clothes. You flip past household items, skipping over them with the disdain of a child unable to fathom why anyone would waste precious catalogue space on vacuum cleaners and curtains. But you stop briefly at the clothing section, only long enough to circle a cowboy costume complete with hat, boots and a lasso you would undoubtedly misuse. The smell of the catalogue is intoxicating. Ink, paper, mild glue. You inhale deeply like you're consuming the essence of capitalism itself. The pages make a soft whispering sound as you flip through them, a sound that soothes your soul and stokes your desire for shiny objects. Eventually you bring the catalogue to your parents, thrusting it open to whichever dream item feels most urgent. You point, you plead, you put on your best hopeful eyes. They glance at the price, they glance at you. They shake their heads with gentle amusement. You don't need that, they say. You have a backyard full of sticks. You deflate slightly, but only slightly, because the magic of the Sears Wishbook is not in getting the items, it's in imagining them, owning them in your mind, building stories around them. In your imagination, you already have the train set, the BB gun, the chemistry lab, the blinking doll army, the lasso, the robot toy, the giant teddy bear, and every oddly specific craft kit. Later, you stash the catalogue under your bed, where it waits like a portal to possibility. Tonight, you'll fall asleep dreaming of impossible toys. Tomorrow you'll circle even more. Every neighbourhood has a dog that roams freely, answers to no one, and somehow knows everyone's dinner schedule. He trots alongside you during adventures, judges your decisions with calm canine wisdom, and occasionally steals your sandwich. No one remembers acquiring him, but everyone assumes someone else feeds him. He's part companion, part chaos, and entirely the reason you feel invincible wandering half a mile from home. The dog appears in your life the same way weather does, suddenly, without explanation, and with complete authority. Some call him Rusty, others call him Duke. Your friend Joey insists his name is Biscuit. The dog responds to none of these names. Instead, he acknowledges your existence with a slow blink and an indifferent tail wag, as if to say, "You may walk beside me today, child. I permit it." He is not owned, but he is claimed by the entire neighbourhood in a loose communal agreement that this dog belongs to all and serves none. He strolls the streets with casual confidence, crossing through yards, slipping through gaps in fences, and lounging on porches like a king surveying his kingdom. He knows which houses have the best leftovers, which kids drop the most food, which back doors are left open long enough for him to wander inside unnoticed. He always finds you. No matter where you are, creek, construction site, makeshift fort, bike trail, he shows up with impeccable timing, settling beside you with the air of an experienced bodyguard whose main qualifications are loyalty and strong opinions on squirrels. His fur is a collage of colours, his ears slightly uneven, his whiskers long enough to detect danger or sandwiches at great distances. On your adventures, he is both companion and chaperone. When you climb a tree far too flimsy for your weight, he sits at the base watching with patient resignation. When you attempt to jump over the creek and land in mud up to your ankles, He trots past you confidently, barely splashing, making it clear he could have done it better. When you poke something with a stick that probably shouldn't be poked, he tilts his head with a judgment so powerful you momentarily reconsider your choices, and yet he follows you everywhere. He joins the neighbourhood bike pack, sprinting beside the wheels with effortless grace, while you struggle to stay upright. He weaves through the stampede of kids during games of tag, often choosing a single child to annoy by gently nipping at their shoelaces. During hide-and-seek, he betrays hiding spots without hesitation, walking directly to whichever bush contains the most frantic whispering. You cannot be mad. He is the dog. His loyalties are chaotic, neutral. At lunchtime, he reappears, knowing exactly when you're holding a sandwich. He sits. He stares. He exudes an aura of patience that breaks you instantly. You offer him a corner, which he accepts politely before attempting to steal the entire thing moments later. Your friends claim he stole a hot dog right off someone's plate last week. No one doubts it. In the evenings, he performs his second job, escort duty. As children run through darkening yards, he trots between groups, sniffing the air for threats or unattended snacks. He barks at shadows, raccoons, and occasionally at nothing at all, just to remind the universe that he is alert. Adults don't question his presence. They simply call out, "There's that dog again," as if he were a recurring character in the sitcom of your neighbourhood. No one feeds him regularly, yet he is never hungry. No one bathes him, yet he never looks truly filthy. No one claims ownership, yet he shows up to every backyard barbecue, birthday party, and baseball practice, as though he received an engraved invitation. Somewhere, someone once tried to put a collar on him. He returned without it, smug. When you're tired, he walks you home, keeping pace with your slow steps. When you're sad, he rests his head on your knee, pretending not to understand, but absolutely understanding. When you're scared of the dark or the booming sound of distant firecrackers, he stands beside you, sturdy and sure, making you feel braver than you actually are. And when you lie in bed at night, drifting off, you sometimes hear him trot past under the window, a soft jingle of tags he doesn't wear, the gentle rhythm of paws on pavement, the steady presence of a dog who belongs to no one yet somehow belongs to everyone. He'll be back tomorrow. He always is. You and your friends decide to invent a new outdoor game today. It involves a croquet mallet, a tin coffee can, 3 marbles, and a rule system that collapses instantly under scrutiny. After 5 minutes, someone is hit in the shin, someone else is crying, and the game ends with the solemn declaration that we'll try again tomorrow. Every great childhood sport starts this way, and thankfully ends before permanent injury. The best childhood games are born not from logic, but from boredom mixed with raw, creative chaos. You and your friends gather in the yard, surrounded by a random assortment of objects scavenged from garages, sheds, and places you absolutely should not have been rummaging in. Nothing matches. Nothing is related. Yet somehow it all feels essential. The croquet mallet is missing most of its paint and has a splintering handle that threatens to embed wood chips in your palms. The tin coffee can once held grounds, but now smells faintly of rust, disappointment, and whatever insect lived in it last winter. The marbles sparkle with deceptive innocence. They will be the source of violence shortly. The planning phase lasts approximately 45 seconds. Someone suggests hitting the marbles into the can. Someone else suggests the can should move. A third child insists the mallet should be thrown, not swung. This idea is rejected, but not quickly enough. Finally, after a burst of overlapping enthusiasm, you land on a game concept so loosely defined it may as well be interpretive dance. You place the coffee can on the grass. The goal? Hit marbles into the can while everyone else tries to steal or block the mallet. Or maybe the goal is to hit the can itself. Or maybe you're supposed to run in circles while holding the mallet like a ceremonial staff. The rules morph with each passing second, shifting to benefit whoever is currently holding the mallet. The first attempt goes about as well as expected. You swing, miss completely, and send the mallet whistling through the air in a wide arc that makes every child present reconsider their life choices. The marble rolls 2 inches, the dog watches with pity. By the third swing, someone yells, "New rule! If you hit the can, you get double points." No one knows how many points were available before. No one tracks points. Points are theoretical. Points are spiritual. Within minutes, the game devolves into a combination of tag, golf, and light combat. Kids chase each other while clutching the mallet. The marbles scatter across the yard, posing ankle-twisting hazards. The coffee can becomes a projectile. Your friend Tommy kicks it in frustration and immediately regrets it as he hops on one foot, shouting, "I'm fine," through gritted teeth. A brief argument erupts over whether crying disqualifies you from the game. Another dispute concerns whether hitting someone in the shin with the mallet counts as a foul or simply part of the experience. Someone introduces the concept of base, which is just the tree they were already leaning on because they're tired. The chaos builds until, inevitably, one child, often the youngest, begins to cry. Not injured, just emotionally overwhelmed by the spiraling rules and the existential confusion of a game that seems to punish participation. Another child holds their shin dramatically, insisting the bruise will be permanent. The group pauses. The collective energy drops, and then, with the solemn authority of judges ending an Olympic event, someone declares, "Okay, new plan. We'll try again tomorrow." Everyone nods. This is wise. This is necessary. Tomorrow you will arrive with new ideas, improved reflexes, and maybe even a better understanding of physics. Or you'll repeat the same chaos, because childhood rarely involves learning from mistakes. You gather the pieces. The marbles vanish into pockets already filled with nails, rocks, and unrelated treasures. The mallet is returned to the garage, leaning ominously against the wall like a villain waiting for its next chance. The coffee can is forgotten entirely until someone's parent finds it and mutters, "Why is this here?" As the group drifts apart, you feel a warm sense of satisfaction. The game was a disaster, sure, but it was your disaster, full of imagination, laughter, poor coordination, and just enough risk to keep things interesting. Because in the 1950s, every great lawn game begins with ambition, collapses under confusion, ends with minor injuries, and is resurrected the very next day with even more questionable ideas. So tonight, as you settle a little deeper into your pillow, breathing slowly, letting the day melt off your shoulders, take a moment to think about the tiny, sunburned warriors of the 1950s. Kids who woke up with skinned knees, pockets full of mysterious metal objects, and a plan that mostly involved going outside and seeing what happens. Children who navigated neighbourhoods armed with nothing but a bicycle, a peanut butter sandwich, and a level of unsupervised freedom that would give any modern parent heart palpitations. They climbed too high, ran too fast, drank questionable hose water, trespassed cheerfully, and returned home only when the streetlights flickered on like heavenly reminders that dinner was getting cold. Their days were messy, reckless, and wonderfully chaotic. And through all of it, those kids built forts, collected memories, made lifelong friends, and somehow, miraculously, survived without helmets, sunscreen, GPS trackers, or a single adult knowing exactly where they were. Maybe that's the strange beauty of it. Childhood then wasn't curated. It wasn't optimized. It wasn't monitored by a grid of apps and schedules. It was raw, unpredictable, sometimes dangerous, and often absolutely magical. Those kids learned to be resourceful, to be brave, to get up when they fell, and to wash approximately none of the stickiness off their hands before dinner. And as you drift towards sleep, maybe there's a quiet comfort in remembering that humanity tends to figure things out. Decade after decade, generation after generation, we adapt. We try. We love our kids fiercely, even when we're winging it. And life, against all odds, keeps rolling forward. So tonight, as you rest in a clean bed, with soft sheets, safe walls, and the gentle hum of a fan instead of the distant sound of an ice cream truck, maybe whisper a thank you to the past, to the parents who trusted the world a little too much, To the kids who tested every boundary and every bone in their body. To the era that somehow made it through despite the lack of helmets, hand sanitizer, or common sense. Because history, no matter how chaotic, hilarious, or occasionally horrifying, reminds us that people are resilient, hopeful, curious, stubborn, and always finding ways to fill their days with meaning. And now, your day is done too. Let your mind soften, your breath deepen, and your body grow heavy and warm. There's nothing you need to climb, no forts to defend, no marbles to trade, just rest. Good night.